Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and Voxversity. So tonight I am going to talk about rule number 2. And, again, this is not a review of the book as a whole. It is simply my commentary on the chapter that I just read, the notes that I just took, and my initial impression of it. And what I have to say is that chapter 2 of the 12 Rules for Life absolutely confirms my opinion that Jordan Peterson is a solipsistic whack job. Okay? What I mean by solipsistic is that his focus is completely and utterly and always revolving around him and his damaged psyche. Okay? He talks about himself incessantly. And what a lot of people don't realize when they're reading his book is that this book has nothing to do with you. This book has nothing to do with anyone else. Okay? It's kind of astonishing that more people don't recognize this. I mean, some people are beginning to. There was a good article in, I think it was Current Affairs. There's a link to it. And, the guy is clearly reacting the same way that I am, which is that it's incredible that anyone takes this seriously. I mean, it is truly and genuinely astonishing that people think that he is this great intellect or wise genius or anything. He's not. He's crazy. He's utterly, utterly self-obsessed. He's utterly solipsistic. He doesn't have even a glimmering of what reality is. He doesn't understand evil. He doesn't understand any of this stuff because it's not relevant to him. Now think about this. Chapter 2, the title of Chapter 2 is Treat Yourself Like Someone You're Responsible for Helping. The subtitle is Why Won't You Just Take Your Damn Pills? Okay? Now think about what that is a open admission of. Yeah, let's get rid of this guy. Byrush, you're talking way too much. This is not a two-way street. Anyhow, the important thing there, I mean, here, first of all, I want you, don't do any hearts right now. We're going to take a little poll here. How many of you have to take daily pills, daily medication? Go ahead and hit the hearts if you have to do that. Okay, so we're seeing a few. We're seeing maybe 20, 25. Okay, go ahead and stop. Go ahead and stop. Now, if you don't have to take daily pills, daily medication, hit the hearts. Yeah, there's quite a few more people that don't have to do this, right? So ask yourself this question. If these are the 12 rules that are most important for life, why is take your pills number 2? Is the second most important thing in life remembering to take your pills when most people don't even need to take them in the first place? Now, it's kind of interesting. I know somebody who has a condition that requires them to take medication. It is one of the rules. Do you guys stop trying to correct me? The rule is rule number 2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Why won't you just take your damn pills? And the whole thing is about pills. Okay? I know what I'm talking about. Don't try to argue with me. I am really tired of these idiot Peterson defenders trying to defend him in ignorance. I mean, just on the blog, somebody was saying, but Peterson is an anti-SJW and an anti-feminist. To which I responded with a Jordan Peterson quote, directly saying, I am not an anti-feminist. Okay? If you're going to try to defend the guy, you might want to at least figure out what he's actually said on the subject that you're trying to defend him on. Okay? Take your damn pills is rule number 2. It's a subtitle. So, how is this even relevant? Right? Why is this even relevant? Because the guy's a whack job who needs to take pills so he doesn't spiral into into manic depressive whatever his condition is. Okay? This is obvious. This is completely obvious. Okay? If the second most important rule of your life is take your pills, there's clearly something fundamentally and intrinsically wrong with you. I assure you, if I were to compile a list of 100 rules of life, take your damn pills is not going to be one of them. It is not going to be relevant for most people. No, this is the problem. It is not a metaphor. He is literally telling you to take your pills. That's what he's talking about. He actually goes in, and it gets much worse. It gets much worse. Listen to this. He's talking about how when people are prescribed a drug, a third of them don't fill the prescription. Half the remaining 67 will fill it but won't take it correctly. They'll miss doses, etc., etc. Now, he says, physicians and pharmacists tend to blame patients for their non-compliance, inaction, and error. Yes. Who else is there to blame? Psychologists tend to take a dim view of such judgments. We are trained to assume that the failure of patients to follow professional advice is the fault of the practitioner, not the patient. That's idiotic. Okay? It is the responsibility of the person to take their medication. It's not symbolic. It's not a metaphor. All right? And so here's the thing. The reason, and the funny thing, now it gets even worse. If you meander through the morass of chapter 2, which ends up spending literally pages and pages on the Garden of Eden, he actually resorts to Genesis to explain why people don't take their pills. Okay? And this is after going into all sorts of bullshit about how chaos is ignorance, but chaos is also how bad you feel after a girl shoots you down. Like I said, the entire book is about Jordan Peterson feels bad, and here are 12 things he does to try to make himself feel better. I mean, it's nuts. It is absolutely incoherent. And the thing is, people are desperately trying to make excuses for him because they say, "Oh, well, I mean, this must be a metaphor. This must be contextualized," and there is nothing more there. It's all very simple. this book, The 12 Rules of Life, are the 12 rules for a crazy guy desperately trying to hold it together and function in human society. Okay? That's what it is. And all the bullshit surrounding it is just his madness trying to somehow justify his grandiose, manic feeling of self-importance. You know, I mean, when I say the guy's a whack job, I am not exaggerating. There's a reason why the guy's on drugs. I'm not even remotely surprised to have learned that. And so going on, I want to, just because I can understand if you're dubious about this. Okay. He asked himself, we return to our original query. Why would someone buy prescription medication for his dog and then so carefully administer it when he would not do the same for himself? So he's comparing it. Basically, he's noting that people tend to be better about taking care of their pets than they do about taking their own medication. Now you have the answer, derived from one of the foundational texts of mankind. Why should anyone take care of anything as naked, ugly, ashamed, frightened, worthless, cowardly, resentful, defensive, and accusatory as a defendant of Adam, even if that thing, that being, is himself? So he's saying that he, Jordan Peterson, doesn't take his pills because he feels worthless. Because he feels naked, ugly, ashamed, frightened, worthless, cowardly, resentful, defensive, and accusatory. He's talking about himself. I mean, I called up an acquaintance of mine who has to take pills for a medical condition. And I asked him, I said, why are you always good about taking all your medication? And he said, well, I'm usually pretty good about it, but sometimes I stop taking it, even though I need to take it every day. When I'm feeling good, I don't, because I'm feeling good and I feel like I don't need it. Even though intellectually he knows he needs it, he doesn't. He intellectually knows he needs it, but he feels good. He doesn't. He has a dichotomy between how he feels and what he intellectually knows. Okay, and of course, we know that that's why most people don't take the pills they should. When people take antibiotics, they often don't take the full cycle, and that's a problem because that's how, of course, you create drug-resistant strains. And so, the thing is that it has nothing to do with people. It's not like people don't feel ashamed and don't feel naked and don't feel ugly and don't feel defensive for the first 5 or 6 days, so they take their antibiotics. But then, after the 7th or 8th day, when they start feeling better and they don't have a stomachache or their symptoms are gone, then they start feeling naked, ugly, defensive, and accusatory, and stop taking their medication. It's the entire premise of Chapter 2 is utterly absurd and utterly solipsistic. And, for Peterson to go diving into bizarre definitions of chaos, I should say bizarre, ridiculous, and self-contradictory definitions of order and chaos, and have to resort to even more bizarre interpretations of the book of Genesis, the Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden story, and weird digressions into how human vision might have been affected by snakes. I mean, it's absolutely freaking bizarre. You know, I mean, you cannot read this as a intelligent, reasonable, mentally balanced person and not realize that there's absolutely something wrong with the author. I mean, it's really remarkable. Yeah, he's talking about the snake from the Bible. He's talking about evolution and people being afraid of snakes, and maybe that's why they can see. Maybe that's why they have better vision. I mean, it's all absolutely ludicrous. I mean, all over the place, doesn't even begin to describe it. You know, his talks are incoherent and random, and his writing is not quite as bad, but pretty close. And it is clear evidence. I mean, I'm an editor, okay? That is a ridiculously disordered, incoherent book that is indicative of a disordered, broken mind. You know, I mean, people who are not sufficiently sophisticated or not sufficiently educated look at that stuff and they just see all this goulash of nonsense, you know, drawn from science, drawn from the Bible, drawn from all these different sources, and they go, wow, he's drawing connections from all these things. This must be brilliant. This must be genius. No, it's not. It's nonsense. It's word salad, exactly. And so, you know, we've gone from bad down to worse, from chapter 1 to chapter 2. How does, a question here, how does Jordan Peterson have so damn many fans? Well, maybe the world is just that broken that somebody who is also mentally broken resonates with them. More likely, it's because he is pushed by the media. You know, I mean, I saw Ben Shapiro made. I saw him constructed by the media because I was at WorldNet Daily when he was there. I had access to the WorldNet Daily numbers when I was there. He was not popular. Most people were not reading, most of the readers were not reading his column, and yet he was selected by creators and pushed and all this sort of thing. The mainstream media does not shun Jordan Peterson. He's all over the place. I mean, the TV hasn't really. Actually, no, he was even on 60 Minutes. So, but the point is that when you've got somebody who is being puffed up as an alternative, and you've got people who are looking for an alternative, and that's the only alternative that they are being shown, that they're being given, you know, it's not a surprise. And so, and also, you know, you have to give some credit where it's due. You know, Peterson is intelligent. He's a very intelligent guy. If he was not so intelligent, he would not be able to construct this incoherent web of word salad in an attempt to portray it as meaning. You have to understand that this guy has a grandiose vision. He just can't articulate it. Of course, the vision doesn't exist, you know, because he can't articulate it. And all of these things he say, oh, you know, I mean, most of what he says is bullshit. He talks about how he has to, he's being very precise. He's being very precise with his words. No, he's not. He is literally less precise with his words than anyone that I have ever read that I can think of. I've read stuff that is incoherent, but this is some of the most incoherent, random stuff, and it's intentionally ambiguous. The only precision there is the intentional ambiguity because he is desperately trying to avoid being called out for being the imposter that he is. There's a reason why he talks about being terrified of making a mistake. The reason he's terrified of making a mistake is because he knows he's he knows he's an imposter. He knows he's a charlatan. And so, anyhow, I'm sure he is terrified of this happening. A number of people have said, "Oh, you're just doing this because you want to attract attention, because you want to debate him, that sort of thing." Peterson is not going to debate me. I don't think he could get through a debate with me without breaking down and crying. I'll be more than happy to debate Jordan Peterson anytime about anything. Now don't get me wrong, he's smart. I have absolutely no doubt that he would be evasive and slippery and all that sort of thing. I don't read self-help books, so I'm not the right person to ask that. I've never needed any self-help books. I would recommend some philosophy books. I would recommend starting with the Stoics. I would recommend starting with Marcus Aurelius and with Epictetus. And then I would also, reading Taleb is also a good idea. I'm a big fan of the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Actually, that's a good point too. The 9 Laws by Ivan Throne. It's a little bit on the dark and ruthless side, but I think that it's definitely valuable. It definitely has. The thing is, if you compare the situation and the challenges that Ivan Throne managed to surmount, and then you compare it to the lunacy of Jordan Peterson, the contrast is practically, it might not be black and white, but it's definitely dark purple and white. And so, honestly, I would recommend reading Sun Tzu as a self-help book. Oh, actually, over reading the 12 Laws. The thing is that the thing is that the fact that Jordan Peterson is considered to be one of the top public intellectuals in the world is a severe and serious indictment of the current intellectual state of the world. Now, I don't actually believe it's true. I just think that the media has the ability to inflate and puff up and exaggerate certain people, and I think that that's what we're seeing here. But anyhow, in answer to some of the questions, yes, I will be appearing on Alex Jones to discuss Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro. I believe the time is about 2:30 p.m. I don't know if it's going to be half an hour or an hour. I've never been on Alex Jones before, so I don't really know what to expect. no, I don't believe that that Alex reads my blog. So, anyhow, I will probably continue this weekend with chapter 3. But, all I can say is that after reading chapter 2, I see absolutely nothing to change my opinion that that he is a mentally ill individual who has constructed a complicated system in order to function in normal human society. So, have a good evening. We'll look forward to seeing you soon, and we'll speak to you this weekend. Cheers.